That was a nice move by Pipkins, taking it right to the rack himself. Wide open three, left wing, and it's good. Nylon, the dunk likes that, Matt.
A three from the right side, and it's good! The one, Pipkins, the man, yet again.
Hello and welcome to the Flex. I'm Matt St. Jean.
And this is Joe Howie.
And this is your Providence versus St. John's pregame podcast. Friars really desperate right now, looking for a win. But on the other side, the Red Storm are red hot. St. John's has won 5 in a row, culminating in an 11-point victory at home against Villanova on Wednesday night. That was right after the Friars got blown out by Seton Hall at home. What's been working well for St. John's over this 5-game winning streak? What can Friars fans expect from them?
2 words, Posh Alexander. He is a freshman point guard, and he's playing at a level of a senior. I mean, the defensive performance that he just put on Colin Gillespie last night was stellar. And by stellar, I mean, like, beyond what David Duke did to Colin Gillespie. And David Duke is typically a pretty good defender. Posh Alexander just blew that out of the water. That's probably the best defensive assignment that he's had all season. And, man, he took that by the reins.
Yeah, he absolutely did. And defense has really been the calling card for St. John's all season long. I mean, I think St. John's this year has been what you usually see from the Friars. They're a scrappy guard team that forces turnovers and gets after it in transition.
Yeah, I mean, they're a fast-playing team. They're a gritty defensive team. I mean, Julian Champagnie leads the Big East in scoring with 19 points for a reason. He's 6'8" at the power forward, a matchup nightmare for most undersized guys or even some bigger sized guys that can't keep up with him. This is a very quick St. John's team that can beat you on the dribble, which is something that the Friars have had trouble with.
Yeah, Champagnie has just had an absolutely fantastic season. Talking about developing your guys, he's been amazing. Posh Alexander's been amazing, and it goes down the lineup too. Vince Cole, Greg Williams, Rasheem Dunn, all helping to pitch in. And I mean, this is a team. They've had some tough stretches, but for the most part, they've played really well. And here's some stats for you. A couple of these are going to be eye popping, I think. St. John's is 3rd in the country in steals per game, and they force over 17 turnovers per game. They have not forced less than 10 turnovers in a game yet this season. This is a Friars team that has struggled with turnovers and struggled with them the last time that they played St. John's. And the Friars went down and played at Carnesecca late last season. It was the last loss the Friars had last year. They turned the ball over 23 times. And from what we've seen from heard from Ed Cooley, it doesn't sound like Jared Bynum is going to be back for this one. So that's going to be a rough point.
Matt, there's a reason this St. John's team has won 5 straight. There's a reason they just knocked off Villanova. It won. I think it starts at the top. The coaching hire of Mike Anderson is so underrated nationally. I know you and I have talked about this a lot, but the change in tempo and momentum that he's brought to the St. John's program, intangible, completely intangible. The shift in what you've seen over the past 4 years before Mike Anderson and now in Mike Anderson's second year is astronomical. I mean, before Mike Anderson got there, St. John's was playing street ball. It was you get the rebound, you gun it up the floor, and you look for a quick bucket, you turn it over, and then that's when the other team runs it up on you. There was no composure, didn't listen to the coach, and now you're seeing a St. John's team that is playing cohesively. They're running their sets, and they're locking in on defense. There's a reason they won 5 straight.
Yeah, this is a good team. This is not – I mean, when we talked before the season, we kind of knew, all right, there's going to be somebody from this bottom tier that is probably going to outperform expectations. Doesn't mean they're going to be a tournament team. Doesn't mean they're going to finish outside the bottom 4 of the conference. But they're not going to be as bad as we thought they were going to be. And I think the two of us kind of picked St. John's for that. And, I mean, it started with the young guys. I mean, Champagnie's a sophomore. Posh Alexander is a freshman. You got Dylan Adayuso, who's also a freshman who's been playing great basketball as of late. These are the young guys that Mike Anderson is bringing in, and he's figuring out what to do with them. That's what he did at Arkansas. I mean, keep in mind that Mike Anderson was hired at Arkansas at the same time that Ed Cooley was hired in Providence. He had a better record over that stint at Arkansas that ended with a win at Providence. It didn't end with a win at Providence, but that came in the NIT back in 2019, and they fired him because they thought they were going to get a better coach. And he just came right up to the Big East, came right up to St. John's. And, I mean, what was it? Middle of January, the Red Storm were 2-6 in Big East play and just 7-7 on the season. 5 straight wins since then. St. John's is ahead of both Marquette and Providence in the Big East standings now.
Not to mention, over the past 3 times that Ed Cooley and Mike Anderson have met, Mike Anderson owns the series 2-1.
Mm-hmm.
One with Arkansas, one with St. John's. The only win coming by single digits at the Dunkin' Donuts Center for Ed Cooley on a night after, I think that was the Butler loss. It was a buffer game between Butler and Villanova last season, and we barely snuck away with a win over St. John's. Just barely.
Yeah, 63-58 in that one. Yeah, right between Butler and Creighton. I mean, that's when the Friars are playing good basketball. St. John's is a tough matchup. Now the Friars have had a couple straight games now playing bad basketball. A couple straight games having a hard time moving the ball on offense. Hard time not turning the ball over. I think this is about the last thing the Friars needed.
Yeah. As we transition here to talk a little bit more about the home team, we're not in a very good spot right now. We had the potential to start at Georgetown and go on what could have been a Marquette, Georgetown, Seton Hall, St. John's, Connecticut 5-game win streak with one on the road. And instead, we turned that into a 2-1 or 1-2 span, with our only win coming at home against Marquette, dropping a heartbreaker in DC, and then just coming out like a flat tire in your own home gym against Seton Hall. So
missed opportunities.
The Friars are caught in a very, very bad spot. And if I'm St. John's, I really want to capitalize on this. I want to hit. If I was playing the Friars, I'd want to hit them while they're down completely. It's a road win opportunity against a team that was projected to be third in the conference. Not to mention that David Duke and Nate Watson are nationally recognized players. If I was St. John's, I'd want to hit us right now.
And they're hot. They're just going to keep rolling until somebody stops them. And they're now in the next 4 out for the Big East, or not for the Big East tournament, for the NCAA tournament. It's St. John's. If they keep this up, they're looking at being the 6th team from the Big East, not Marquette, not Providence. And that's not what anybody expected coming into this season. But yes, let's talk about the hometown Friars.
Hold on a second. Andy Katz did predict St. John's as the 6th team in, but he had Providence in place of Xavier. I think that's Andy Katz's preseason prediction. So just someone did predict St. John's.
Did he really?
Yes, he did. On his March Madness 360 podcast with John Fanta, they talked about the Big East, and Andy Katz said, I could see St. John's as the 6th team in. Not right now, but somewhere down the line. So I'm sure he's very happy with the way they're playing because it's proving him right. And then the only other swap of the teams in the tournament would be Providence in for Xavier. Wow. Xavier's only played 6 conference games, by the way. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah. Xavier, that's a whole different situation in Xavier. They're now on their 3rd COVID stoppage of the year. But let's talk about the Friars. They only score 43 points at home against Seton Hall. Kind of have a feeling it can't get worse than that. What do you do? I think we've heard the overall message from Ed Cooley. We've seen a lot of the strategies. What do you do from here?
Well, I'll talk big picture and then I'll move into tunnel vision for this game. The loss last night against Seton Hall reminded me of when we were in Brooklyn last December and we lost by 30 points at the Barclays Center. Do you remember that game, Matt? Of course.
Vividly, vividly.
There was a hope of just there, no, not hope, excuse me. There was a feeling of hopelessness and despair. And then we had 10 days off, came back and busted the doors off of Texas. Now, obviously, this is a completely different situation. Those were two non-conference opponents earlier in the season. It's February, and we just lost by 17 in our home gym, scoring under 45 points. We are as flat as I've seen this team in the 6 to 7 years that I've been following them. I've been following the Big East for much longer, but Providence specifically for 6 or 7 years. You really need to win this game, and this is no rollover. This is no cupcake. This might be the toughest game you play all season because you are as down as it gets right now, like below like rock bottom, bottom. That's where you are right now.
This is going to test your mental toughness like no other.
And right, you want to talk about mental toughness? I think the two guys in the spotlight for this game are going to be David Duke and Nate Watson.
Those are the guys.
David Duke has struggled, obviously, over the past two games. He put up less than 10 points combined over the past two games. He is... Oh, wait, no. He put up 11 points, didn't he? 6 and 4.
Who?
Duke.
In the last game?
Never mind. He's played terribly the past two games. We'll just put it at that.
Yeah.
Six turnovers on your home floor. And listen, this is the price you pay when you play him at the 1. That's the price you pay. We saw it his freshman year. His sophomore year, we moved him off the ball. He shined. At the beginning of his junior year, he was off the ball. And we've seen glimpses of him play the point and play it well while dropping 30 points, i.e. at Xavier, i.e. home versus Marquette. But he can't do it every night, which is why I think Nate Watson has to step up. You need to go back to your bread and butter. And St. John's, their tallest guy, is 6'10", wait for it, 205 pounds. If there was ever a time to dump the ball in the paint offensively, it is now. You get Nate Watson going, you spark the entire team. Look what happened at Creighton. You need to take advantage of your offensive size in the paint. You need to feed Nate.
And this is the St. John's defense that, for all of its strengths, has not been particularly good in the paint all season. In fact, they have a worse 2-point defense than the Friars do. So that gives somebody like Nate Watson an opportunity to come out and play well and try to give this offense a spark.
Yeah. The game is going to come down to two things, Matt. Composure with the basketball and feeding Nate Watson. And the reason I say composure with the basketball is because if we turn the ball over, St. John's is going to make us pay. They may score more transition points than we score overall.
Mm-hmm. They're remarkably efficient in transition. And, I mean, that's their bread and butter. They have one of the highest tempo teams in the country because so many of their possessions are just a guy running down the floor for a quick layup.
Right. So this brings me back to my point about David Duke being mentally tough. This game, if he doesn't score more than 10 points, that's fine. His job is to facilitate the offense. And then if that doesn't work, you've got Allen Breed and you've got Bryson Goodine. But right now, option number one for distributing the offense and running the show is David Duke. Mm-hmm. If you want a scoring guard, you can look to Reeves. You can look to Goodine. Hell, I mean, you could even look to what's his name, Jimmy Nichols. If you want 3-point scoring.
If he's healthy, yeah.
If he's healthy, but it shouldn't be Duke. If you want Duke to have a good game, leave him in one of the roles, not both.
Yeah, and you need from everybody else. This team needs to step up. The Friars need to play more physically, and they need to play with more discipline. You have to run your offensive sets consistently. You have to pass the ball well. Make sure you're getting it to the guy you want to get it to. Do it efficiently. Run the offense with confidence. And also, I mean, St. John's is going to bring a lot of different looks at you. They're going to press you. So you got to make sure you're taking advantage of the opportunities that brings up, 1. And 2, just don't turn the ball over. You have to be clean with it. the guy. I mean, Duke has to be better about that. Reeves is the guy who has to be better about that. And I think just about everybody on this lineup is going to have to be a little bit better, a little bit less careless with the basketball than they've been over the last couple games. That
Yeah, Matt,
has to be the point that's being stressed.
I want to elaborate on that a little bit. I think that's going to come down to some rotational minutes too. Not to pick on him again, but if you look at Greg Gant and or Noah Horkler, so actually it's the two guys. If you look at either one of them and you look at the way they turn the ball over, it's almost as if they're running a play. And you know how sometimes if you run a play, a coach will typically have a fail safe. If the play doesn't work out, you dish it back out to Duke.
Yeah.
It looks like every time that the play fails, instead of going to the fail safe, Greg or Noah will just continue the play and pass it into the opposing player.
Yes.
I think it was Greg Gant on the left wing sometime late in the first half. He had the ball. I think the pass was supposed to be to Reeves in the corner. He faked to his right, then looked to his left to pass it to Reeves. Reeves had a man covering it, and he passed the ball anyway. What you're supposed to do, if the man is covering Reeves, you pull it back, and then you go to the fail-safe.
Yeah.
Noah Horkler did the
You
exact
reset.
same thing in the second half. The exact same thing on the other end of the floor. The same position, same play.
Yeah.
You're supposed to reset. And right now, our four men are not doing a good job of doing that. So you need to be composed. And that's going to come down to rotational stuff. If someone starts turning the ball over because they're playing too fast, they need to come off because it's going to hurt us.
Yeah. And the Friars, I mean, this is you have to play a solid 40 minutes. St. John's is not going to go away. They're going to hound the ball all game long. And if the Friars come out hot and build a big lead, then St. John's is more than capable of coming back. And if St. John's gets out to a lead, the Friars have to try to buckle down, or else when you lose this game at home, especially you lose this game big, the season is just about over. At that point, you need to win every game for the rest of the season and potentially also games in the Big East tournament just to be considered for the NCAA tournament. So, I mean, you can't have a game like the Seton Hall one where things get tough in the second half and you fold. The goal is still NCAA tournament. You got to buckle down.
Just a point about building up a lead. In 3 of our last 4 matchups, we had a lead at halftime and we lost. At Villanova, at Georgetown, against Seton Hall.
Yeah.
The only team that we kept our lead against was Marquette. And that's not really saying anything because Marquette's, quite honestly, not that talented.
And they've been wildly inconsistent, too.
The fact that we lost to them, we should be ashamed. But that's another podcast.
Yeah, we have led at the half in the last 4 games and lost 3 of them. Is that what it is? Or is there one other game in there?
No, yeah. It was at Villanova against Marquette.
Yeah, we've led at the half in all of the last 4 games and won only one of them. That's just unacceptable.
So I want to build off of what you said, Matt, about if we lose this game, it could be the end of the season. I'm still going to disagree with you. I'm not exactly playing this team is so talented we can come back card because I think everyone took a dose of reality last night that this isn't the team we expected it to be. However, we've seen this team play well. I'm not here pumping their tires saying this is the best team in the conference, but we've seen them play well. And we've seen them play well specifically on the road. At home as well, but on the road. At TCU, at Creighton, at Seton Hall. We've seen this team play well against power conference opponents on the road. So the season is not over. We just need to re-find the composure that we had earlier on. Because like you said in our post-game episode after Seton Hall, Matt, this is a team that's won games and at one point was 2 bad losses away from being 5-1 in conference play and talking about a national ranking.
Yeah.
But as John Fanta said on our podcast when we had him on, you are what your record says you are. We are 2 games under 500 in conference play. We need to own it, and we need to take control of it.
Yeah. At the end of the day, the only group of guys that can make this work, it's the guys in that locker room. They have to find a way to buckle down and execute the game plans. And, it's not going to be Easy. It's going to be far from it. When it comes, I mean, there's 4 games left against St. John's and UConn, who in some ways are the 2 worst matchups for Providence in the Big East. You need to win at least 3 of those, bare minimum.
Yep.
So you got to find something in yourself. That comes, I mean, guys like Gant, Horkler, Nichols. You got to find that little extra. Take your game to the next level. Duke, take your game to the next level. Don't press. Don't force what isn't there. These guys have the talent, and clearly they've played well in practice, or else they wouldn't be on the floor. You got to find ways to do it against opponents. That's really all there is to it.
Right. I mean, if the norm at Providence College for Providence College basketball has been turn it on in February, then live up to the norm. I read, Matt, and I shared it with you, an article today about how since the post Chris Dunn era, we've seen this program, this squad resort to late season runs to revive what has otherwise been a soft season. We can get into the nitty-gritties of that another time, but it's a really well-written article. If that is your identity, then you need to start owning it. And you need to start owning it earlier than the middle of February. Because if you want to stop sweating on Selection Sunday, if you want to stop sweating in the Big East tournament, and you actually want to enter the month of March feeling comfortable and confident that you're going to make the NCAA tournament, because that is the end goal. When they rehired Ed Cooley to that huge contract after the Michigan debacle or whatever that was, Ed Cooley and Bob Driscoll said the goal is for Providence College basketball to compete for national championships. That's what they said. In that interview where they're sitting next to each other, that's what they said. If that is the goal, then it needs to start picking up now. You have pieces to do it. We've learned that they are not the same pieces that we came into the season believing, but I still believe Nate Watson is the best center in the country. Maybe next to Luka Garza, who is beyond a center. Luka Garza is a point guard, shooting guard, forward center. That's what he is.
He does it all.
Nate Watson's the best true center in the country, and it starts with him on Saturday in the paint. Own the advantage and own home court.
That article you were talking about, that was Daniel James, the Warrior Friar, who wrote that over on 24/7 Sports. That was a great article if you haven't checked it out. Outlined a lot of the flaws, a lot of the trends, the negative trends that we've seen with the Friars in recent memory. And the reality is, in a lot of ways, regardless of what happens for the rest of this season, the season is a disappointment right now because this team is supposed to be much, much better than they have played, and it was supposed to have a much, much better record at this point. It can be saved. Friar shouldn't be here. But yes, it does. It's going to go through Nate Watson on Saturday.
A note I want to make, it always seems like the seniors and the upperclassmen are the guys to pick it up, right? So let's take Cartwright, Lindsay, and Bullock's junior year. You look at those 3. You look at the abysmal start to non-conference, and I mean, like, what were they? 8-4? Or no, 4-8. Sorry, I keep getting that screwed up. It's been a long day. I worked till 8 o'clock tonight. They were 4-8 in conference play. They went on a 6-game win streak, ended 10-8, third in the conference because they had tiebreakers over everyone except Villanova and Xavier. The following year, they landed in that log jam, but 10-8. So technically tied for third, but seated at 5th in the Big East tournament. And they went to the Big East tournament championship, taking it to overtime against the eventual national champions,
who they beat in the regular season.
Right. The following year, you had a power struggle between Alpha Diallo and the rest of the team because he wanted to leave early to go to the NBA. You had a hole at the point guard where Kyron Cartwright left that was supposed to be filled by Duke, but after Duke was underwhelmed, it was picked up then by Malik White, but then
and Mekhi Langford.
Some other stuff happened on Twitter, and then Mekhi Ashton Langford found his way into the role. Basically, we juggled too much at the point guard with not enough consistent scoring down low. Our senior year, but the following year, 2019-2020. After that devastating loss against Florida at the Barclays Center, you know who stepped up and got the team on his back? Emmett Holt. He was a senior. He had been in the program for 6 years. He knew that he wasn't a 35-minute per game guy. At most, maybe Emmett Holt got 20 minutes a game. But he knew that he was a senior. It was his last season, and he took charge. Later on in the season, when we were down again, who took charge? Luwan Pipkins, who had been there for 1 year.
Yeah.
And Alpha Diallo. This right here, this next stretch of games it's like an antelope frolicking through the grass. Nate Watson's got to be the lion.
Yep.
You have to go out there and you have to own this. He's the senior. Mm-hmm. He is by far the most consistent and the best player on the team. He's a nationally ranked center. He's a nationally recognized center. He's the best center in the Big East. This is his time. And I know he's more than capable of doing it. Yeah. I'm putting a lot of faith in him. He's our guy. Even if it's... Go ahead.
I mean, if the season's going to end up being a success, it's going to be on Nate Watson's back. That's an absolute certainty. They can't do it without him.
And for all you Twitter haters, if the season doesn't turn out to be a success, that's not a failure on Nate Watson. Not at all. What we're saying here is that he is the senior leader that will take this team to success. That is what we're saying.
And it's going to take stepping up from Duke and Reeves. I mean, they're not your senior leaders, but they're juniors. They're experienced. They've been there before. They have the opportunity to really step up into that leadership role and find that next gear. And I mean, like we said, if Duke, Reeves, and Watson all find that next gear at the same time, watch out. You're going to have another one of these season-ending runs from the Friars in all likelihood. But I think it's fair to be skeptical that that's going to happen until it's seen, because we really have not seen it for any sustained stretch this season.
No, and quite honestly, a lot of Friar fans are probably going to listen to us and think these guys are full of it, the season's over, and that's fine. I'm not writing off the season. Not yet.
No. It's not worth it. At the end of the day, this is college basketball too. You watch the game because it's fun. You root for the team because you like them, and we're not going to stop doing that. I mean, if it comes down to that last game against Villanova and the Friars have lost every game between now and then, we're still going to be here rooting for them to win and telling you how they can do it.
Yeah, it's an abusive relationship that we have with the Providence Friars, but
yes, it is.
We're bonded for life. We're not fair weather fans. We're not jumping off because the team isn't good. We'll stick with the team.
Yeah, that's what we're here for. We're dedicated, hardcore fans, and we love watching Friars basketball. A reminder: this particular iteration of Friars basketball can be found this Saturday at 2 p.m. at Alumni Hall on Fox Sports 1, assuming that none of these listeners will be attending in person for that one. Friars are currently 9-9 on the season, 5-7 in conference play. Meanwhile, St. John's 12-7 on the season, 6-6 in conference play. So these are two teams, like we said, that need a win. It's no different from the last game, except the stakes are a little bit higher. The pressure is a little bit more intense. And in some ways, the opponent is going to be a little bit harder than Seton Hall. Certainly a different opponent that's going to attack you in a lot of different ways. So we will see how the Friars end up handling this one. Joe, what's your prediction?
Well, my X factor, if I didn't make it so blatantly obvious during the entirety of the podcast, is Nate Watson. Similar to Creighton, size advantage down low. If he doesn't get touches, I'm probably gonna punch a hole through my TV. That's the point that I'm at right now. We have such a useful tool offensively in Nate Watson, and to not give him the basketballs, it's a crime. My prediction: Friars 79-70. It's going to be a wake-up call, but we need it.
All right. I hate to be the downer. I am going to predict a St. John's victory here, mostly because from what we've seen from the Friars has been less than inspiring. I'm going to need to see a little bit more evidence before I put some faith in them to win these games. I think this is a terrible matchup without Jared Bonham in the lineup. Like we said, he's apparently recovering slowly, according to Ed Cooley. I'm going to take St. John's 65-57. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. Lots of turnovers in both directions. And, I think the Friars are going to struggle. I think they're going to try to go to Nate Watson, but we've seen this before with the Friars where the game plan doesn't quite work. And think St. John's is going to do everything they can to take Watson away, and it might work. Friars might get them the second time, but this is going to be a real tough game. I hope the Friars win, but it's going to be tough. I think that is going to do it for us here on this episode. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at the Flex Hoops. And make sure you are subscribed or following wherever you are listening to this. You can stay up to date. As always, thank you for listening.
Go Friars.